for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
From the annual Centennial Corn Fair Jamboree, I'm never mind. I'm Corey.
I'm Maddie.
And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous,
a show dedicated to all things horror and occasionally Halloween.
So, Maddie, I have a confession to make.
Again?
Yeah, I have a lot of confessions to make because I have a lot of things I do that make me feel guilty.
Okay, what's your confession this time?
I really, really like Z Nation.
Really?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the topic, but I just finished season 4, and I really felt like I needed to tell you and the listeners that I really love this show.
And that is a zombie show, right?
Yeah, sort of. It's The Walking Dead if The Walking Dead wanted to have fun instead of just being this depressing drone of a TV show. Like, okay. It's not afraid to be ridiculous. Like, there's, like, mutated, like, fungus zombies and zombies that can't be killed, like a zombie bear at one point. Like, it's really fun.
Okay, so it's the Return of the Living Dead to the Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, it actually pushes that sort of Return of the Living Dead idea a little bit further. There's, like, telepathic zombie whispers and stuff.
Oh my God.
I just needed to get that out. I just wanted to tell someone, and that someone should be you guys.
I'm not judging you, and I hope the listeners aren't.
Me too.
The topic we decided to focus on this week was horror down south.
Yeehaw!
At first I was like, I thought farm exploitation as a genre, but that seemed a little vague.
Yeah, and I kind of accidentally totally ignored the fact that you said farm exploitation. Just went with shit. That means I could do movies about Southerners, which is kind of racist to your people, and I apologize.
Well, my people forgive you.
Thank you.
Actually, wait a minute. I'm from Texas, and technically we're Southwest, kind of. So, completely different field than hillbillies.
Well, who did y'all fight for, though? I mean, I know that, like, yeah, well, I was going to say, I know Texas sort of, like, generally does their own thing, so.
So I figured that going for horror down south, focusing on films that emphasize the redneck subculture, if you will, the fear of hillbillies, of people living in the country, or just the general idyllic setting of the country would be an interesting topic for this episode, as a sort of antithesis of the classic romanticist idea of the idealism of the country.
Yeah, and the more I thought about it, like, I had originally been like, okay, this is a fun idea I'll be able to make fun of a lot. But then I started thinking about it. I'm wondering if maybe this whole rural horror thing attempts to tap into our fear of a less evolved people. You know, not that I believe this, but there are definitely, like, and this happens up north too, where people think those of lower class or lower culture tend to be less evolved as well, which means that they're harnessing more of the animal inside of them than maybe a rich New Yorker would be. And I think people are innately afraid of people who are closer to their sort of animalistic nature. So there's a fear when you walk into a bar. Well, when some people walk into a bar and they see, like, hunters' trophy heads on the wall and they know they're full of hunters because these people have killed. Granted, it hasn't been people, but they have killed. You know, so I think this could be like this whole thing may have stemmed from an urban fear of rural people, and it's another way to sort of bring back this whole classist system we seem to live in and just can't get away from.
I think that's possible, but I also think it's really easy to film on a low budget without getting any licensing in an empty field or on an old barn property.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. But it's, as usual, I tend to overthink this. And in fact, I have overthought the fields and the wilderness part as well.
Does this relate to your film, or do you want to get into it now?
No, this relates to the, like, I have, this is just a small bit of my notes. Like, since you've been talking mostly about the topic, I wanted to sort of add my own thing as well. And so I tried a little harder this week. Well, I
Okay.
also had 2 weeks to do it, so I tried about as hard as I normally would. I just got a little more out of it. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. The fear of the wilderness is kind of what created the horror genre, because you have the Black Forest legends in Germany, however long ago that was, and all these folk tales came. I'm drawing a blank at any of the specific one, but there were all these tales in Germany that were specifically told to keep children in line, keeping them from going into the Black Forest, keeping them from staying awake too late, that kind of thing.
Well, when you get right down to it, most classic fairy tales are about keeping children from trusting strangers or the wilderness or the wilds.
Right. And a lot of that comes from this whole Black Forest legend, and kids used to go in there and get lost all the time, apparently. But I wonder if this is some sort of offshoot of that, some sort of leftover fear that we all have from these legends that have been passed down.
I think it's possible. I can definitely see that idea reflecting itself through Pumpkinhead, which is one of my favorite movies. I should have put it on my list last week.
Mine too. Yeah, every now and again I need to reaffirm my love for the genre, and Pumpkinhead's one of those movies I throw on to remind me why I am who I am.
The way they explore witchcraft in the Appalachians with the Pumpkinhead curse is just so incredibly unique and fairy tale-like and ethereal.
Mm-hmm. And I've always loved, because I'm near the Appalachians here, and I'm close to a lot of these old superstitions.
And you're calling me from the deep south?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not Southern, but I'm definitely backwoods. You know, I grew up with really dirty feet. My grandparents used to lock me in a blueberry patch. This might be getting a little dark accidentally, but
well, someone's got to stomp the blueberries at dawn.
Right, exactly. But no, there's definitely a set group of superstitions and rituals people from, and I'm not talking rednecks here, I'm not talking big trucks and like giant stacks and that, I'm talking like deep woods mountain people. They all have their own traditions, their own rituals, their own way of worshiping God, mostly, that kind of thing. Yeah, and it's all very interesting.
Especially Pentecostals. I mean, the particular sect of them that does the snake thing. Where they...
Oh, yeah. I wasn't even thinking snake handlers. I was thinking like reading tea leaves and casting bones, the sort of gypsy stuff that came here and ended up staying mostly in these more rural cultures and stuff like that. Granted, you see it everywhere, but they're the ones that kept it and believed in it, and maybe still do.
It's funny that you say gypsy, because I really relate that really more to sort of African culture. But I can see the merits for both sides, certainly.
But I think both African and gypsy culture use things like that.
You know, I think there are a lot of older, smaller cultures that use more morbid imagery, if you will. I mean, just look at Mexican mythology like Santeria and anything related to Santa Muerte. It gets pretty grim.
Yeah, true. But didn't Santeria we're getting way off subject here.
Yeah, we definitely are.
Santeria was sort of the same idea as slave worship and voodoo in a way. It's why it was them hiding their gods in the Catholic saints.
I would say merging, not necessarily hiding. And it's been a pretty big battle with the Catholic Church for a while, but most of the philosophy has been, though it's kind of blasphemous, if they can't get rid of it entirely from the culture, then they're just going to turn a blind eye. But again, completely off topic, back to horror down south.
Yeah, back to horror down south.
This week, I'll be discussing a 1980s classic, Dark Night of the Scarecrow, and Corey, your film?
My film may cause a problem with you because when I was looking over the outline again, I noticed that you put me down as 2000 Maniacs, and I was actually doing the remake 2001 Maniacs.
That's okay, I've seen both.
Okay, good. This will work out then. I was kind of hoping you hadn't seen both, but that's.
No, I'd actually already seen the remake, and when I was trying to find it on Amazon, I didn't find it, and I thought, well, maybe both movies are called 2000 Maniacs and you just did a typo or something. So I thought he must be talking about the original. So I went ahead and watched the original this week on full moon.
Okay, cool. And I watched all three because I wanted to compare the death scenes and see which remake took from the original, which didn't, but we'll get to that.
There's more than one remake?
Well, there's a sequel to the remake, Field of Screams, which was originally entitled Beverly Hillbillies, which is so much better of a title.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that one, so you can definitely surprise me with that one. But before we move on to the movies, guys, let's talk about a little bit of horror news. First of all, I've got a pretty cool little tidbit, not necessarily news to a lot of people, but there is a sort of attraction in a Minnesota lake of a Jason Voorhees statue at the very bottom. That is pretty awesome. I think I might get into diving now just to go see it.
Hell yes. Can you imagine, though, if, like, I'm sure this is a featured attraction. Like, I'm sure there's a sign up that says, oh, welcome to Crystal Lake. See Jason at the bottom, blah, blah, blah. But how cool and actually how horrible and chaos-inducing would it be if nobody knew that thing was down there and the artist just put it there? All these divers end up going down there and seeing this, like, corpse in a hockey mask and not really understanding it. And freaking out about it. It could have been really funny.
Yeah, I suspect that originally it might have been placed down there at the bottom like that. And there might be a big diving community in this lake, which is in Crosby, Minnesota. And it just sort of became a thing. The statue doesn't look as good now as it did when it was originally placed, because it's not made out of a lot of sturdy material. But who knows? It's still pretty awesome.
How recent were the pictures posted? Because I'm pretty sure I saw the same stuff you saw. Were they older than...
The last picture was posted, it looks about the beginning of March. So, yeah,
okay.
Very recent.
Okay. I'll have to go back and look at those then.
It's still really cool. Like, I love that Denmark has, like, The Little Mermaid, but we've got Jason fucking Voorhees.
What was that movie? There were two of them. They were made for TV movies about who played Bender in The Breakfast Club. I can't believe I forgot his name.
John Bender. Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I'm gonna feel like an idiot. I know.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? You don't remember who played?
Hey, you're the one that had to look it up too.
Yeah, but I remember the act. I didn't remember the character name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just tell me his name. Stop making me feel bad. I'm having a trying evening.
Hold on. I'm full of shit. I don't remember his name either.
See, I thought you had already looked it up, and you were making me feel like an asshole. This is brilliant.
Yeah, it's Judd Nelson.
Judd Nelson. I can't believe I forgot Judd Nelson. Anyway, there was a series of films, and you've got IMDb in front of you. You can look up. There should be two of them where he played a serial killer. And he did this, he disposed of his bodies by building a garden of corpses under the lake near his lake house.
Holy shit. First, you've got to look up what he looks like now. The first picture that pops up is insane.
Oh, no. All right, Judd, let's see what's up.
He was in an episode of Tales from the Crypt as a serial killer. They killed people and made them into steaks for a diner.
I vaguely remember that episode.
That's What's Cooking. It's one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, he doesn't look so bad right now.
But did you see the hair?
It's just tall. You mean the first, like his main picture there?
Yeah, the weird one where they gelled his hair out.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I'd like to think it's not gel and it's pomade because he's cooler than that. But all right, let me see if I can find these movies real quick since I'm on this page now too. Okay, here it is. Cabin by the Lake. I'm pretty sure there was a sequel, but I'm not seeing. Yeah, Return to Cabin by the Lake. Judd Nelson plays a serial killer who he makes a garden underwater of his victims, and it's actually really beautiful in a morbid way when he dives down there and sort of takes us on a tour of this. And this fits in because this is backwoods horror. This is at a camping ground. So I'm still on topic. I win.
The DVD double feature on Amazon is $80.
Jesus, that's because it immediately went out of print after it was printed, I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah, stuff like that would be cool. Like if we could have, I don't know how many horror fans are also divers. I imagine a few. It would be cool to have a little garden of the macabre under there, like Judd Nelson's, and this is the only good part of the movie, his corpse garden.
Oh, I would love that.
But we need to have something like that too, yeah.
Okay, how did you watch this? Because now I'm going crazy. I need to watch this movie.
Oh, it was on USA back in the day. I remember seeing a preview for it. I'm like, this is going to be terrible. I need to watch it. And I did. I watched it. And then a year later, the sequel came out, and I watched it as well.
There is a $20 4-pack on Amazon for Cabin by the Lake, Axe at Last Total Terror, Hellmaster, and The Devil's Child. It is on my list.
All right. I've never heard of any of those other movies.
They are all probably pretty terrible. Those multi-packs usually have like 1 or 2 good movies to make you buy 10 bad ones.
Yeah, that's normally the way.
I do miss Judd Nelson, though.
I do, too. Breakfast Club is still a constant watch in my life.
There was a great movie he did in the 90s where he was like a lawyer, and they faked his first case, which was one of the most brilliant like comedic scenes I'd ever seen. And they faked him winning his first case, sort of like him and the other lawyer were in cahoots. And then afterwards, he got put on like a seriously questionable case defending like a murderer or something, and it's pretty good.
Oh, I don't remember that. I probably didn't see it.
You probably didn't. It's only for like real movie fans who like know their stuff. So.
Oh, all right. So you're gonna be pretentious about it. That's cool. That's cool.
Back on topic. Do you have any other horror news to discuss of your own, Corey?
Yeah, I do. I have 2 pieces. One sort of relates, and it to no one's surprise, Black Mirror has been renewed for season 5 on Netflix. And I know that it's sci-fi, but it's a very dark version of sci-fi that very often crosses the boundary into horror. So I think it counts.
I think it's Outer Limits taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I do too, and it's fantastic, and I'm obsessed with it. The other one they did, the Amazon's version of it, Electric Dreams, the Philip K. Dick stories, that one is also good, but I haven't heard anything about a renewal. So yeah, that is coming hopefully next year for a season 5. Netflix is real shady about it, but I'm excited for it. And in video game news, Hideo Kojima from Metal Gear fame, who got into a big fight with Konami, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to worry about that.
Everyone's always fighting with Konami.
Yeah. But he left Konami, started his own production company, which he should have done years ago. And he's been working on this game called Death Stranding with Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen, which is going to be super weird and super fantastic. But it has been delayed. It's not coming out until 2019 now, which is sad. But as a gamer, I understand that it's better to hold off on releasing a game than releasing a broken game and patching it to the dismay of the fans.
Yeah, you failed if you end up in a future episode of Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a little treat for you, similar to a game I did in my old archive for the Friday the 13th episode with Jazlan. I thought before we launched into the movies, let's play a little fun get to know each other's movies game.
I think that's a great idea, and I think some of our listeners would appreciate that as well.
All right. Well, I call this game Guess Where This Death Scene Came From, because I'm not very creative with game titles.
You're totally going to beat me at this. I'm almost positive.
I doubt it, but why don't you throw your movies out first?
Actually, we could split it. And I'll keep score. Let me find a piece. I'll keep score on the bottom of my notes.
Okay. At the end, you're like, Corey 35, Maddie 0. We didn't even have 35 questions.
I did consider cheating when I was coming up with mine, but I didn't. Oh, I kind of did, but I didn't. All right, so my first one for you. The clue is accidental punji stick.
What is a punji stick?
Like a stick sticking out of the ground, and somebody falls into a hole and gets impaled on it.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
Oh, nice. See, I told you I'd give you an easy one.
Yay!
All right, so that's one for Maddie.
All right, my first movie. This guy makes the classic turn your back mistake, then gets impaled on his own shotgun.
Oh, it wasn't Friday the 13th. Or, I mean, it wasn't Nightmare. No, it definitely wasn't Nightmare on Elm Street, but it wasn't Halloween because that shotgun impalement was at the front. Wait, was this a Friday the 13th movie?
Nope. That would be too easy.
Yeah, it would. Hatchet.
Nope. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Pumpkinhead.
Son of a lifeless, horrible corpse family.
He says something to the effect of, it's dead, and then, of course, looks away, and Pumpkinhead makes his move.
All right. I don't remember. Again, I need to watch that movie again. I would have gotten it had I just had I just been true to myself. All right, my turn. Thrown Bowie knife to the eye.
Oh. Well, dang. Thrown Bowie knife to the eye.
Yes.
Shoot. That's not The Final Girl.
No, but that's a great movie.
Oh, I love that movie. Or is it The Final Girls? I always get the titles mixed up. It's the one that's a comedy.
Yeah, it's Final Girl. It's the one with the blonde girl from Scream Queens.
Mm-hmm. I love that movie. I'm going to wave the white flag. What is it?
Sorry, I was muted and drinking whiskey. I've turned this into a drinking game secret. So you didn't know I was an alcoholic. All right, so this was slightly a trick question. So even if you would have guessed the right thing, I still would have gotten it. It was Wolf Creek, the series. It happens in episode 1 of Wolf Creek, the series. The mother is running away and turns around. I can't remember if it's to check on her son or what, but he tosses his Bowie knife right through her eye.
Oh my god. Do we need to, like, gradually tack rules onto this as we play the game? Like, in each episode, if this becomes a recurring game?
Maddie, I will always find a way to cheat. We can tack as many rules on as you want, but I am an unethical jerk. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Apparently.
All right, so you're up. And besides, I'm pretty sure you're going to continue to stump me. So even with my questionable behavior, I think that you're going to get it.
I don't know. I gave you some throwaways, and I'm not sure I should have now.
Hey, I gave you some too.
All right. This death occurs when he is crucified with corn husks and eaten by a static demon.
Crucified by corn husks and eaten by a static demon.
Crucified with corn husks.
A static demon. Couldn't be Shocker. I can't remember that happening in Shocker.
Nope.
Static demon feels so familiar, though. I'm going to feel like such an asshole if I can't get it.
There's got to be some listeners screaming at their podcast right now.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
No, this one's so easy.
Static demon, and that's probably why I'm failing, because it is so easy. As in a demon made of static, like this demon would be of electrical origin. Is that what we're talking about?
No, I'll give you a hint. It's the special effects that make it look like a static demon. It was just a designer's choice.
Oh, okay. Children of the Corn?
Yeah, you got it!
Oh, nice. It took me a second. I had forgotten about the whole floating ball thing, and then that reminded me of, okay.
All right. Throw one at me, Corey. Cheater.
Do I get a point for that? Or
yeah,
do
you get a point. You get a point for that.
Okay. So it's technically Corey 2, Maddie 1 now.
What? How is it Corey 2? No, you don't get points if the other person doesn't get it. That is so cheating.
Oh, okay. So it's 1-1 then.
Yes, it's 1-1.
No, that honestly wasn't me trying to get
Wait a
one
minute,
by you.
wait a minute. I would still have 2 if we did it that way.
So it doesn't matter. It would be 2-2. So let's just keep it. You know what? No, if we guess it, we get it. If we don't guess it, the other person gets it.
Okay.
So we'll keep it 2-2. Yeah.
All right.
At least then the points will be higher.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my next one. You might get this one.
Go on.
All right. I am open to giving you hints for this one. Head exploded with defibrillator.
Defibrillator, huh? Head exploded with it?
Defibrillator to the side of the head. Boom.
Oh, dang. Do we get lifelines in this game?
You mean, like, are you going to call a friend?
No. Well, maybe lifeline's not the, There should be some kind of, like, one chance kind of thing that we do.
We can refine. We'll refine.
Yeah. Oh, what about name an actor?
No name actor. Kane Hodder is the one who does the killing.
Friday the 13th, Part 3?
No, ma'am.
Damn it. He wasn't even in Part 3.
No. But I appreciate your gumption.
All right, what's the answer?
The answer is Hatchet 3.
Oh, my God. All right.
Yeah, I went into the depths of my collection for some of these.
Oh,
Speaking
man.
of which, I'm really excited to see Victor Crowley. I love the Hatchet movies.
You haven't seen it?
No, it was just released not too long ago.
Oh,
I just
I'm
haven't
thinking
bought
of
it
the first
yet.
Hatchet film. I thought it was called Victor Crowley. Yeah.
No, the last one, it's not Hatchet 4. It's just called Victor Crowley, and it doesn't have any recurring characters except for the Asian gentleman.
Well,
I believe he's Chinese, but I don't want to get it wrong.
Just for that and your television one, I'm going to give you some tough ones next episode. You just watch, sir.
Okay. So right now, let me just remind myself, we're 3 me, 2 you.
Yes.
This is actually closer than I thought. I really did think you'd kick my ass.
All right. Nearly disemboweled by a maniac cowboy singing revival hymns before he takes things into his own hands.
Oh, Jesus. I know that you're being clever and the taking things into his own hands is his guts. Am I right in that?
No.
Disemboweled by a cowboy. Oh, Near Dark.
Not at all. The main...
Totally. Dude, in the bar scene,
singing revival hymns, Corey.
Oh, shit. Hey, the Cramps are revival to me.
He wasn't singing.
Shit. All right, I give up.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
No, I just watched that movie too. Oh.
All right.
That's the one with Dennis Hopper, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. It's got that great half decapitation scene with those 80s preppies in the convertible.
Yep.
I love that movie. You know, a little piece of trivia. This actually brings us back to Hatchet. In Hatchet Part 2, there is a journalist who is played by the same character who is the radio personality in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Really?
And this never comes out, and it's never hinted at really in the episode or in the movie, but she considers that as a sequel for her character. She sees awesome. That as her character just moving from Texas to the bayou and getting involved in this whole Victor Crowley thing.
I love that.
A little bit of trip there. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know, I think I saw her at a convention last year, and Sid Haig and a few other people. I've seen Sid Haig at like 2 conventions. I'm a little worried about him. He doesn't look good.
Yeah, he's getting up there. I am too. I'm hoping, apparently there's talk of another Devil's Rejects. And if that's the case, I hope they makes it through.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
All right, I guess it's your turn now. We are neck and neck.
Yeah, we are 3-3 right now. Are you tallying scores too, just to make sure I don't cheat?
I'm mentally tallying it.
I would not be able to retain that much knowledge. You're smarter than I am.
You know, I'm terrible at remembering most things, especially names, but I'm okay with numbers.
Oh, I'm terrible with numbers. All right, so barrel roll target practice.
Oh, for God's sake, really?
Yeah, really.
Barrel roll target practice?
Yes.
Well, it's not 2000 Maniacs because they didn't do target practice. Is it 2001 Maniacs?
God, yes.
Yes!
No, it's not.
What?
It's not.
Which one is it?
It's Field of Screams.
You motherfucker.
It's the third one. Well, the second one.
All right, so score right now is Corey 4, Maddie 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Nothing like getting your just desserts when the garden people climb out of the ground to kill you. Maybe if she hadn't slit their throats, she'd have heard them coming.
Motel Hell.
All right, you got it. Corey 5, Maddie 3.
Yeah. The Motel Hell and I have a long history. My mom rented to. I've always been a very progressive, open-minded person. My family, not so much. My mom. Well, my mom always has been to a point, but we're not going to get into the family stuff just in case my mom listens to it. I don't want to talk bad about it.
Only truly evolved people can appreciate Motel Hell.
Right,
intellectuals, if you will.
But yeah. But my neighbors, or not my neighbors, my mom's renters in the house she owns, they were a gay couple, practically married. This is way before it was legal. But they were both huge horror buffs, and a lot of what I learned from them because I would go up there to I was kind of their maintenance guy. So I'd go fix what needed to be fixed and then be like, oh, chill out and let's watch a movie. So that was the first place I saw Motel Hell. First place I saw Pieces. Yeah, these guys really opened my mind to stuff that I never would have. Well, I would have probably found eventually, but I found much earlier, and it sent me down a path to actually search for these more offbeat horror films. So yeah, Motel Hell was the first of that. So it would be hard to stump me with a Motel Hell trivia question.
All right. I will keep that in mind. Never again.
All right. So that counts as a point for me then. So it's 6-3. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So was that your final one? No, you have one more after me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This one, I don't want to say this one's going to be easy, but I think it might be easy for you. If it's not, I'm not presuming that you should know more than you do. So just so you know.
All right.
Shot the gas tank, blew up.
That is so incredibly vague. That is in so many movies.
All right. Shot the lock off the gas tank, blew up.
I don't know.
It was not at a gas station.
It was not at a gas station.
No, because these are farm questions.
These are farm questions. Well, it's not. Probably not anything I have ever seen. I'm stumped. I can't think of any movies with exploding gas tanks.
It is Savini's remake of Return of the Living Dead.
You mean Night of the Living Dead?
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen that one since I was a kid. There was no way I was going to get that one.
Yeah, plus I just remembered you're not really a zombie girl. I spaced that.
Well, no, I like some zombie movies. It's not my favorite monster.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. I like a little bit more of a challenge, a little bit more films with more sexual tension, like Cat People and Uncle Dracula.
There's a movie called Uncle Dracula?
Yes, it's terrible.
Oh, God, I have to see it.
It's on YouTube.
All
right. My last one is probably going to be a very easy giveaway. Neither queen nor country can save this poor man from his hard-earned barbecue.
Wicker Man?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, I thought I would... This was a struggle, because I thought we were just going complete farm theme with all of these movies for this game.
Well, I kept it relatively, let's see. Okay, no, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. You got most of the ones that weren't actually farm movies.
Yeah. So we've established that Corey is a cheater, but he still won this round.
Excellent. I won by 4 points. No, I won by 5 points. It was 8-3, let the record show.
Well, next week it's not going to be so easy, Mr. Lunchuck.
So we're gonna do a game a week?
I think so. What do you think?
No, I think it's a good idea. Can we call these the we need to dedicate these to Steven somehow.
Okay.
So maybe we'll come up with a title that isn't I don't want to call it the Steven Memorial Game because he's not dead. I'll come up with something. And actually, he'll listen to this and probably come up with something for us.
The Steven Pre-Memorial Game.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time, guys, to move on to the movies so we can forget my humiliating defeat.
Wah, wah, wah.
I am not cutting in an effect for that.
You can just use my voice. It's okay.
Mary Lee! Too bright and not far away, hey, hey. Too bright and not far away. Red and yellow, green and blue, growing in my garden too. Flowers soon to smile with glee, just for you and me, just for you and me. Don't worry, Mrs. Ritter. Bubba's not gone. He's just being silly. Don't you know what he's doing? He's playing the hiding game.
All right, so my movie I picked is Dark Night of the Scarecrow from 1981. So what's really cool about this one is, unlike the other movies we've viewed so far, is that it's directed by someone who's primarily a novelist, Frank Felitta, who wrote Audrey Rose, as well as the screenplay for it, and the sequel, and he also wrote The Entity.
Wow, dude's got some chops.
Yeah, he was a pretty good writer. He didn't have a huge bibliography, but what he did was pretty solid.
Yeah.
But it's strange that he didn't write the script for this one. He actually had a different writer, J.D. Feigelson. This movie is actually a holiday, Halloween tradition for a lot of people. And if you're ever looking for a copy of it, you can watch it on certain streaming services. Not that I'm advocating anything illegal. Or you can buy the DVD. It was out of print for like at least 20 years though, for a while. If you're a VHS collector like I am, the Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, since it was a mid-'80s VHS release, is sort of one of the holy grails of videotapes.
Do you have a copy of it?
I don't. I wish I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the most valuable tape I have is Canadian release of Love Bites.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. With Adam Ant, not the Asia Argento one.
I just assumed you meant the Adam Ant one.
Oh, wow, you knew about the Adam Ant one?
I knew about it. I haven't seen it. I'm a pretty big Adam Ant fan.
Oh, I love Adam Ant.
Me too.
So this one has a pretty decent cast. The main names that stand out is going to be Larry Drake, who plays Bubba. And his mother, Mrs. Ritter, is actually played by Jocelyn Brando, the older sister of Marland. She did mostly TV and stage with her brother. She was also one of the first members of the Actors Studio.
You can definitely feel the stage actor in her when she's on screen. Like, you can definitely feel her tapping into emotion more than a TV or film actor would have done, especially at the time.
Yeah, even for a small role, she's got a very good, convincing depth of emotion.
Oh, for sure.
Larry Drake, who played Bubba, I'm sure y'all have seen him in plenty of movies. He's been in...
Dr. Giggles!
Yes, he is Dr. Giggles.
Dr. Giggles? I don't know why, but I love Dr. Giggles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody loves Dr. Giggles. And he was, of course, in Darkman. So he did a lot of late 80s, early 90s kind of things. The other major actor in this is Charles Durning. He was in Muppet Movie, Attica, Tootsie, The Last Supper, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
He's way into overstepping his... how do I put this? He's way into overstepping his occupation as a public servant, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm going to love to hear about that. Are you talking about the character or the actor?
Oh, I'm talking about character.
Okay, good, because I had never heard a bad thing said about Charles Durning, sir.
Wait, that's the mailman, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So the plot is vaguely reminiscent of a classic, one of my favorite Boris Karloff movies, The Walking Dead, from 1936, in that most of the terror in this film is experienced by the villains after they commit their crime. Even though there is a major tragic event in the earlier portion of the film, everything afterwards is all about sort of just desserts for the bad guys. Bubba and a little girl named Mary Lee are best friends. Bubba's sort of developmentally challenged. He has the mind of like a small child. And Mary Lee is a little girl. Well, there's this group of guys headed by Otis, played by Charles Durning, who are kind of obsessed with tracking Bubba at all times. I think it's implied that they've tried to kill him before.
And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, the dude's a mailman.
Mm-hmm.
The dude is a mailman. Mailmans don't need to be staking out, like, poor dudes, like, innocently hanging out with small children. Granted, it's a little bit shady, but, like, his job is to be like, hey, parents of these people, maybe you should talk to your families about this. Not stalking mentally challenged gentlemen and their small children friends.
I admire the work that mail carriers do, not to downplay their roles, but next to a meter maid, they're kind of on the bottom of the totem pole for public servants. So the fact that this guy thought he had so much power is beyond me. Of course, there's more to it than just protecting a little girl when you get right down to it. Yeah,
I think this has a lot to do with the whole rural tough guy ego, too. I think they're playing it up a lot in this film. In a lot of movies that deal with these type of people, you'll get a bar fight. You won't get a bunch of them ganging up and straight murdering a disabled gentleman.
Yeah. So basically, Mary Lee gets hurt in the beginning of the film because she's not listening to Bubba, and she sneaks into someone else's property and gets attacked by a dog. And the first thing Otis and his friends do, that would be Skeeter, Philby, and Heartless, by the way, is they track him down, and his mom tries to hide him. Bubba disguises himself as a scarecrow, and then they stab him, and it's implied later that they also shot him several times once he was dead.
I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but I have two problems that fit in right here. Problem number one is, okay, Mary Lee is attacked by a dog. Bubba obviously gets her to where she needs to go, like a hospital. And then how is she, like, is this the worst hospital in the world where she's declared dead when she's not dead?
I think it's hearsay.
Okay, you think it's just
small
town gossip?
talk. Exactly. And these
Okay.
guys had been burning for a reason to go after this poor man for years, probably. So
Okay,
the
I'll
first
give you
time,
that.
yeah, they hear about this little girl being hurt or whatever, they immediately think, oh, she's dead, and they just decide this is finally their chance to deal with this man they've been obsessed with since he was probably a kid. These are just vicious, horrible men who take someone who's a sort of outsider and want to kill him, someone who's the absolute definition of innocence, someone who doesn't understand evil.
And this sort of plays into my problem, too, of this part. Man, worst hiding place ever. Who's going to go? I've got a great idea. I'm going to go to this open field where everybody can see in the off-season. We find out it's the off-season. They haven't planted yet, so there's no reason for a scarecrow to be up yet. So Bubba, in his poor innocent thinking, decides, I'm going to go be a scarecrow in this open field where everyone can see this human-shaped thing hanging in the field.
I can understand that, and it is a very poor choice, but I also suspect he's probably hidden in the house before, and those men were going to tear the house up anyway. He's still running, they're catching up to him. That's the first thing he can think of just to get away, is to dress himself up as that scarecrow. That's exactly what a child would do. A child thinks that even hiding under the bed will protect them.
That's true. And you know what's scarier than a child being mauled by a dog?
What?
A garden full of terrifying garden gnomes.
Yeah, that is pretty terrifying.
Like, how do you see that as a child and be like, I'm going to go there? No, that's not okay.
Well, I mean, Mary Lee, we'll get into her later, but she's not a normal little girl, in my opinion.
No, she's not at all, and I think she's a lot smarter by the end of the film than we realize.
Otis and his friends go on trial in the town, and even though the DA doesn't approve of it and there are cops who don't approve of it, they get off because Otis is a public servant. He's very respected in the community, even though the man's living at a bed and breakfast and he doesn't have a family of his own at his age. So they're kind of living high on the hog. They're pretty proud of themselves. And then it turns out, of course, before Otis died, or right after Otis died, they found out that Mary Lee was alive. Her mom doesn't want to tell her I'm sorry, not Otis died, before Bubba died. Mary Lee's mom doesn't want to tell her that Bubba's dead, so she kind of just lets it go. And Mary Lee goes out in the middle of the night to try to find Bubba. And it gets dark and eerie to the point that you think this little girl's going crazy because she thinks she can hear Bubba talking to her. And then, one by one, Otis' friends get picked off in horrible ways, usually involving farm equipment and cars. And it's pretty darn dark. And with each death, Otis gets more and more paranoid, and you see more and more of this, like, horrible, awful man, and the fact that he really is obsessed with this little girl.
Yeah, and all the deaths are very Chekhovian as well. Like everything that killed these various murderers was introduced early on. We've got like Chekhov's wood chipper, Chekhov's grain silo, Chekhov's pitchfork. Like it's all there.
And it's so simple too, but the way they die is very disturbing. You don't see the Scarecrow, the villain, the main thing about this whole film. It's just like things get turned on. It's very supernatural.
Yeah, and this is the fact that all of this mostly happens off screen too is it's something we don't see a lot every day now that I'm going to bring up The Walking Dead again. But the Walking Dead has really changed the ratings, the way TV shows are rated now. So it's often a lot scarier to imagine these people's deaths than it is to actually see it. And that's kind of what we go through here. Like you actually imagine the guy falling into his wood chipper, which means you feel what it might feel like a little bit. And that to me is 10 times more terrifying than watching a dude get chopped up by a wood chipper.
Well, if you ever get the chance to see the original Cat People, all of the horror and terror and dread in that film is about the unseen.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just have no memory of it. I need to go back and watch it again.
And that used to be a major thing in film, the unseen, not only to save on effects, but to enhance the actual feel, the emotion of it. Because when you're watching a film, you want to be pulled in. I feel like if everything is about effects and murder and gore, even though you used to be a gore hound, I do think it kind of distances you from the moment. It removes you from it.
Oh, it does. And as a gorehound, I still agree with you because I think there are films that need to feature that kind of gore, but there are films that are not meant to as well. Most of my ridiculous films should be gory and cartoony in that gore. But movies like this, I definitely prefer it to be left up to the audience.
Mm-hmm. I think what's funny is, like, for me, the most disturbing scene wasn't Bubba's death. It wasn't anybody's deaths in this film. It was when Mary Lee was confronted at the dance by Otis right outside the dance hall, because I spent that whole scene thinking, oh God, this old man is going to do something to this child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also the moment when you realize Mary Lee has always known that Bubba's dead. So it's...
Oh, for sure. The kid knew what was up.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's very sort of a fairy tale-like almost. It's got a very fairy tale atmosphere to it. Just desserts for all the villains served. It's a good movie. It's surprisingly good for a made-for-television film, but I think this was a time when you saw a lot more heart put into them. Made-for-TV movies at the time, because cable was becoming a big thing, they were made to be real, legitimate films, not just something you could make because you couldn't afford to do it on the big screen. And even though it clearly has a small budget, I think they worked really well with what they had.
Yeah, we occasionally still get stuff like this. They're usually in military. They're usually in miniseries format, like Harper's Island.
Yeah.
Harper's Island was a really, really good made-for-TV slasher miniseries. But, yeah, we don't get it nearly as often because it's so much easier to go direct to DVD these days.
Mm-hmm.
Or streaming.
Yeah. And, you know, I think actually this was the first, you can argue about it, but this was the first Scarecrow horror film.
Oh, I have no argument. I can't. I haven't seen too many Scarecrow horror films.
Well, I mean, you can argue that the Scarecrow itself isn't the monster. That's a spoiler I don't want to reveal, but, I count it as the first Scarecrow horror film because it even has Scarecrow in the name. But it's just all around, it's a good movie.
Yeah, it is. My first observation is, how is this town so excited and congratulatory about these rednecks straight murdering a dude? There's only three people in this entire town that find this modern day lynching a bit fishy. Like at the end of that court case, everybody's just out there to, hey, great job murdering a disabled person. Awesome job, guys. Like, it's insane to me.
I think in a community, a closely woven community, if something bad happens, it's easier to pretend it didn't, or it's easier to turn away, or it's easier to paint things in a much brighter light, because at the end of the day, you're going to be waking up and going to work with the same people and seeing the same people every day.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's similar. I mean, I don't live in a small, tight-knit community. I live in a college town, but it's the same idea. Cover-ups happen, and people definitely ignore the problems going on around us. So I get that.
And this was also, when this movie came out, this was still a time when lynching was fresh in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, that's true. Another thought? Did they not get the rights to the term hide and go seek? Or did they... Or do you think they called it the hiding game so they could have that end part without spoiling it?
You know, all those southern kids always have funny names for things that people normally call something else.
Since this was in 1981 and made for TV, I get why they can't show the gore. Like I said, we were talking, and I was talking about how off-screen is better some of the time.
That pitchfork through the stomach, man! You just feel that. You gotta like shrivel up when you. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. But I really dug, and I don't remember exactly what scene this cut from, but the blood to the glop of jam at breakfast was pretty awesome.
Well, a good, and I love a good transition.
That was a great cut. I really enjoy that.
It's up there with one of my top 5 transitions. One of them being from Dead End Drive-In, where someone gets cut or something and it goes straight to some frying meat. Yeah.
It was fated that we meet. You just mentioned Dead End Drive-In. This is fate.
It's an awesome movie. We need to talk about
really
exploitation and stuff sometime.
Yeah. The Halloween party, that looked boring as hell. I never would have gone to a party like that. But again, I get it. Small town get-togethers. That's how they roll.
Well, it's mostly for kids, too. I mean...
Yeah. I think that I just have a problem with parties in movies because I don't even like the party in Night of the Demons, and they're getting drunk too. But I hate that party because they have chips. What's wrong with me? There's no problem with chips.
You don't like parties with chips in movies?
No, I think parties should only have booze at them. I don't think there should be food unless it's got the word dinner before party. Parties are for getting drunk. Dinner parties are for eating while getting slightly drunk.
I think if you have chips, you have a better chance of people not throwing up, because people usually throw up if there's their stomachs are empty.
Maddie, as a gentleman who's thrown up his fair share of chips, I disagree with that statement.
So really, it's your own emotional scarring from the chips experience.
Yeah, you might be right.
You're prejudiced in your own way. You're not gonna like lynch the Pringles guy, are you?
I may. You mean the cartoon guy?
Yes.
I will crush that little cartoon head. I will see what's in there, and I know it's not brains.
Listeners,
it's probably all salt. Sorry.
Listeners, someone please Photoshop a picture of the Scarecrow with the Mr. Pringles head for us.
Preferably beaten to death. Do a before and after. Okay, so the mailman's cover-up of Mrs. Ritter's death. The lady had a heart attack. There's no need to blow up her house. If anything, blowing up the house with a woman who just had a heart attack just makes it even more shady. This dude is not a rural criminal mastermind. Mm-hmm. The reason he's getting away with this stuff is because, dude, these cops suck. Gas leak, dry rotted wires, and then the sentence, old people can't take care of their stuff. Case closed. We did it. Let's go home. Even though her son was shot to death, one of the guys who actually shot him already died in his wood chipper, and the mailman is acting all sorts of shady. These cops just aren't even trying. It drove me crazy. And I get it that sometimes, especially in lower budget movies with less of a time frame to get it done, they've got to sacrifice intelligence just to move on the plot. But man, is everybody dumb as shit in this movie.
General rule of thumb with horror films, cops are always incompetent unless they arrive at the very end to clean up the mess.
Valid point.
I have 3 reasons why Otis did this. 1, he's not very smart. 2, he was slowly going crazy and losing it, so this would have been a perfectly understandable thing for a madman to do.
That's true.
3, he had already just been at trial for murder recently. He could have been panicking and expecting to go to trial again, even if it wasn't entirely his fault. So he thought, I've got to destroy all of this evidence right now.
Yeah, I guess maybe he wasn't quite thinking straight. That makes sense. Yeah. I'll give you that.
Plus, he's a mailman, and they're crazy.
Yeah, that's true. As we learned in Demonite, male persons are insane.
And we just lost all of our mail carrier listeners.
Sorry, guys. I still love what you do. Your jobs must be miserable, and I appreciate all the packages you send me from Amazon. And so I guess when you become a demon ghost scarecrow hell-bent on justice, your IQ goes up a few points.
Aww.
No, seriously, he couldn't recite his ABCs past J. That's actually said in the movie. But now he can run wood chippers, grain silos, and is even more capable of engaging in psychological warfare. Satan, who I assume is responsible, totally hooked this dude up.
Have you ever read the Necroscope series?
I read the first 2, and I read more of them, but I don't remember them. But yes, I'm at least 2 deep. I love that series.
Who's to say this isn't the Necroscope universe, and Bubba's not connected to a million other dead people right now?
All right, fair enough. All right, I did some research on my own, because something drove me a little bit crazy.
All right.
In the scene where they're digging up the gravedigger says he's rotting under 5 yards of ground. I wanted to know if this was actually used in place of the phrase 6 feet under. So I researched it a little bit, which led me to the weird part of YouTube, Maddie.
Oh, God. The weird part.
So yeah, Maddie, I ended up on the weird side of YouTube.
Aren't you always on the weird side of YouTube? Let's be honest with ourselves here.
I've been there a lot more lately because of this show. You're right, especially last night looking into something we'll talk about later.
You're gonna wake up in the middle of the night one of these days, and your computer's gonna be on. There's gonna be static on the YouTube video, and you'll be like, "Oh crap, they're here."
They're here. Yeah. I mean, like I told you the other day, I'm already having sleep paralysis and weird night terrors again. I get to the weird part of YouTube, and it leads me to this video that was, and again, I don't know if my mic was, or if my speakers were muted or something weird was going on, but it was all in sign language about a dude who keeps his dead grandmother in a coffin in his backyard. He even shows her to us.
What?
No worries, though. He covers the coffin with a blue tarp when the weather gets bad.
Oof.
And the phrase doesn't even seem to be used anywhere. But yeah, I if you want to see it, I'll try to find the link again. But it was the weirdest, It looked so real. I'm not willing to say it's definitely real, but this is where your research takes me. This is where your movies take me.
Please
Maddie.
Explain to me how you got there from 6 feet to 5 yards.
I Googled he's rotting under 5 yards of ground, and it just took me to this YouTube video. It wasn't more than 2 clicks past what I searched for. It was so weird.
If you're in the mood for just a good kind of seasonal horror film, Dark Night of the Scarecrow is an excellent one.
Yeah, I would recommend this completely based on the last 3 minutes of the movie, for sure.
Don't skip through to the last 3 minutes, but definitely
watch the whole movie or shit's just going to get confusing.
Speaking of confusing shit, let's talk about your movie, Corey.
As I stated before, there was a little bit of confusion. Maddie thought I was doing the old Herschel Gordon Lewis film 2000 Maniacs, but
and this might be the second time I screwed up our outline.
It is, but that's okay. What I was actually doing is I believe his name is Tim Sullivan remake, 2001 Maniacs. But I watched 2001 Maniacs first, and then I remembered how good 2000 Maniacs was, and I wanted to compare Death Scene remakes. So I watched that too, and I also bought 2001 Maniacs Field of Screams on Amazon, even though I already own an import copy on Blu-ray because I can't watch it right now. Just so I could watch it again.
How much have you invested in this podcast so far?
I honest to God, I'm probably pushing $500, if not a little bit more, and I'm totally okay with that. Like, it's probably more than that. So, 2001 Maniacs. Spoilers from here on out, friends. I'm not going to be quite as nice to you as Maddie is. Not only for 2001 Maniacs, but potentially for the sequel, as well as the original 2000 Maniacs.
Oh, God.
This movie is about ghosts that were murdered by
Yankees.
Northern troops. Yankees, yes. Yankees, as Maddie's people know them by. I know them as my neighbors. This does take place in the South, so there are a lot of racial undertones in the film.
Were these films directed by Yankees? I don't exactly remember where Herschel Gordon Lewis came from.
I have no idea. That's a good question. We should actually, let me take a minute and find out.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yep. Mm-hmm. My man was born down the road.
Yeah. This is typical behavior from you northern like history revisionists, always trying to put the Southern man down.
Yeah. So you're one of those people that call it the War of the States, then, or the War of Northern Aggression.
All I'm saying is there are plenty of zombies waiting to rise again, and
all
that's
right. You're not wrong. All right. So Tim Sullivan is also up in my neck of the woods. He's in Jersey. Mm-hmm. So yeah, these are both Yankee directors. Which is kind of interesting. Well, let me finish my disclaimer. I'm definitely going to be talking about some racially charged stuff in this, but I am, and Maddie is in no way condoning racism in any form. I shouldn't speak for you, but I just assume so.
Yeah, not unless you're Dutch.
Sorry, Dutch listeners. At least listen to half the podcast because I think you guys are pretty cool.
With your damn clogs and your... Do they do waffles? No, that's the Belgians. You know what?
Yeah,
I hate the Belgians more.
All right. I'm okay if you hate light-skinned cultures. That's fine. All right. So 2001 Maniacs, a remake of the 1964 movie 2000 Maniacs, is about the quaint southern town of Pleasant Valley trying to have their annual Guts and Glory festival, which is then invaded by various 20-something stereotypes who mock their customs and make fun of their kind hosts, not only behind their backs, but occasionally to their faces. What these terrible people don't know is that the town was raided by Union soldiers led by General Sherman during the Civil War. His men raped, pillaged, and murdered their way through the entire village until none were left. They return every year on the anniversary to take revenge on any northerner that happens upon their town. So that is the general plot. It's once again, I'm not saying that Southern people didn't have their issues during the Civil War, but
it's interesting from a historical perspective because a lot of times in history books we do try to only focus on the slavery aspect of the Civil War and the fact that the cotton industry was going to be destroyed in the South. We don't really focus on the fact that both sides suffered a lot.
And we also don't focus on the fact slavery was the main deal there, but we don't focus on the fact that other things were happening there. Mm-hmm. And and most importantly that you just brought up that there were atrocities, terrible atrocities done by both sides. So yes, these Southerners take revenge on these Northern douchebags. I'm not calling them douchebags because they're normal. I'm calling them douchebags because these are some of the worst people I've ever seen.
They are awful.
They're actually worse in the sequel, but we'll see if we get to that if I don't run way too long.
They're like the parodies of teenagers in Tucker and Dale versus Evil. They're that bad.
Of course, Eli Roth has his paws all over this, as he does with every independent lower budget movie. Mm-hmm. He was a producer and he had a cameo, which I can only imagine was him playing himself as a hitchhiker. He was just incredibly awkward, throwing armadillos at cars to get rides. This was his scam. And it was ridiculous. Once again, Eli Roth pokes his head into a place that he doesn't necessarily need to be. I know that he loves and supports horror, but I get tired of seeing him being himself sometimes.
Well, Stephen King does the same thing.
Yeah, but Stephen King doesn't annoy me.
I think Stephen King and Stan Lee have earned the right to do that.
Right.
They've earned that place.
Yeah, there's just something about Eli Roth and his eternal 90-ness that just puts me off and makes me dislike him.
In 20 years, you'll appreciate his cameos.
And maybe, we'll see. It depends on what he does in the next 20 years. Peter Stormare, from such movies as The Big Lebowski, Constantine, anything that requires an Eastern European sounding vaguely gentleman, he's in it. Anyway, he's got a cameo, which oddly enough edged out a cameo by John Landis.
What?
They filmed a scene. Yeah, they filmed a scene where the kids cheat and completely screw up their term papers. So in the released version, Peter Stormare's character tells them they have to rewrite these papers. But in a cut scene, it's actually John Landis playing the dean that tells him they have to do that. Who cuts John Landis out of their movie?
That's awful. Why would John Landis?
Yeah, it's insane. It's in the deleted scenes, and I wouldn't have known it had I not
Eli
watched
Roth.
Yeah, like how do you keep Eli Roth in his dumb armadillo scene and get rid of John Landis? Unless John Landis was like, wait, Eli Roth's in this? I don't want to be in this movie. I think we just got mystery solved. Yeah. So Kane Hodder also has a brief cameo, which I assume means he did a lot of the stunts in it. I didn't look into it. You just see him in a quick scene standing there as one of the town folk.
I would just like to say, for someone who plays a big murderous villain in all of his films, Kane Hodder is just one of the most lovable on-screen killers.
Oh, yeah, and I can't remember if I told you about this, but I met him years ago. He was doing a college tour with George Romero and Doug Bradley and some author who I didn't care about.
Oh, that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't in college at the time. I was just kind of bumming around. I was actually traveling at the time, and I happened to be back in town this year, and he showed up. I didn't sneak in. My girlfriend had a class where he was coming to speak at. So I actually got to sit in a room with maybe 20 other people with Kane Hodder and George Romero and just have a dialogue. It was really cool. But Kane Hodder was one of the nicest, most down-to-earth dudes I ever met. I was a young, homeless, dirty, goth punk rocker.
I'm not glad to hear that you were like that, but I'm glad to hear that Kane was a nice guy.
Yeah. Oh, no. Be glad to hear I was a homeless dude. I did it on purpose. I enjoyed traveling and didn't have the money to do it, so I just kind of hitchhiked around for a while. Yeah, we just hung out and just had the most normal, small-talky conversation ever. We talked about boots. He was wearing these badass pair of New Rock boots, I think they were, and they were just perfect for him because they made him look even more like a giant. What a great dude. Anyway, yeah, cool. So
I'm sure I've said it before, but I met Robert Englund. He signed my torso, and he was pretty nice too.
Awesome. He seems pretty dope as well. Like your actual torso, or did you bring a torso for him to sign?
My actual torso. I got it inked.
Oh, that's cool. Where at?
My torso.
Yeah, I know, but there are different parts of a torso. Are you purposely not telling me where it's at?
No, it's on the right side, like right between my hip and rib bones. It's over right by my Freddy glove tattoo I'd gotten like the year before.
Oh, okay, cool. And I'm sure, as Maddie knows, there's a cameo by Travis Tritt. Maddie probably knows this because he's a country singer.
What?
You're from Texas. He's Travis Tritt. That's how you guys roll. It's
so
okay.
You just blindly assume we all listen to country music.
No, I assume you all listen to Travis Tritt.
No, but I like Toby Keith.
All right, there you go. Yeah, I actually really like Travis Tritt. I'm just messing around. Travis Tritt has a cameo as the gas station attendant. He's kind of a low-key harbinger. Mm-hmm. I have low-key hillbilly harbinger written here, which is a little closer to the truth. And the reason I say low-key is because he doesn't really actually warn these kids. He just kind of quietly mutters that they're all going to die under his breath and nobody hears him. Because I hate all these victims. He hates all these victims. I want them to die, and I'm pretty sure so did he, so I totally get that.
I think that's an acceptable thing in writing if you're doing a comic portrayal or a comic, almost semi-comedic remake of an older film. But for me, a general rule of thumb, if it's an actual serious horror film, I don't want to hate the victims.
Yeah, I agree. It's the problem I had with the remake of Waxwork. I couldn't stand any of the protagonists, although it did make watching Paris Hilton die all the more enjoyable. But that is neither here nor there. There's a great Deliverance reference at this gas station, too, with a little kid playing steel guitar and one of the characters playing his acoustic guitar. I thought that was pretty cool. And then they enter the town. And as they enter the town, this also happens in 2000 Maniacs. Mm-hmm. The entire town comes out. It's a little more hillbilly in 2001 Maniacs.
Yeah.
The entire town comes out playing banjos and like hooting and hollering to greet these people. If I was ever to roll into a town like that, I would not even get out of my car. I would not stop driving. I would probably run over a few of these people on the way out. No, nothing good comes out of an entire town greeting your car.
I would say if I compared the Community from the original and from 2001, if I had to pick one to trust a little bit more, I would trust the original. Because the ones in the remake were down and out way creepier, like 100 times creepier.
Yeah, for sure. I would trust the ones in the original better, but I would like the ones in the remake better. Robert Englund plays Mayor Buckman, who is absolutely fantastic as always. And again, I can't stand the rebel flag, but that rebel flag eye patch is one of the most badass things I have ever seen in this movie. Like, it completely tells you who this guy is right away.
I love how no matter the film, he always brings something really fun to his roles.
Yeah, he definitely does. He's not in the remake. Mosley, Chop Top from
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the movie you didn't remember.
Right. He plays Mayor Buckland in the sequel, and he does all right. He's just his scenery chewing, but he's not Robert Englund, so it took a little bit away from it.
I still really enjoy Mosley.
Oh, so do I. Yeah, Robert Englund steals every scene he's in, obviously. Although it's kind of tough because Lynn Shay is also in this film. Lynn Shay was in a lot of she was in There's Something About Mary, that Amish bowling movie that I'm forgetting.
Oh, Kingpin?
Kingpin, yeah, she's in Kingpin. She plays Granny Boone, and she's just all over the place awesome as well, like just totally into her role and being completely crazy, improvising stuff. There's a scene where she licks a spear after someone's impaled on it. That is just perfect, and she totally improvised it. It was absolutely great. And much like in Freddy vs. Jason, Robert Englund did most of his stunts, including there's a scene where he jumps off the stage over this wall of fire and lands and then begins sword fighting with one of the final boys. It's just awesome. I love that this guy he's probably in his 50s at least, maybe early 60s in this, and he's still doing all this stuff that most people would break a hip doing. I love it.
He loves what he does, he's passionate about it, and that can keep you young.
Mm-hmm.
So can being an evil ghost that comes around every 100 years to like slaughter people, but...
Yeah, that's a very good point, too. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the only black human in this film, and I say human because there are at least 2 black ghosts on the southern side. The only black human in this film, it's hilarious. He's offered watermelon as soon as he walks into the hotel. One of the other black characters is like, watermelon? And this, to me, sets the tone for the racial comedy in this film. Because since this movie takes place in a town of Southern ghosts that died during the Civil War, of course there's going to be some racism. You can't get around that and have a truthful film. And as ridiculous as this movie is, there still needs to be some truth to it. Mm-hmm. This film manages to keep the jokes funny and the black characters involved in as lighthearted a way as they can. Mm-hmm. Even to the point of giving the black character a lot of white racial jokes. Like, he definitely holds his own anytime somebody's sort of like off the cuff shooting him some sort of racist comments, he's given it just as well as he's taking it. And I really like that the movie didn't just... It's really easy for movies like this to just play up the whole Southern racism, uncultured idiot thing. And I don't think this movie did it. I think it walked the line really well. I mean, although though he is eventually killed by a cotton press, so like maybe a little off on that observation. There's a character called Harper, which before we meet him, he's built up as this smooth ladies man, and he's absolutely not that in this. They recast him they use Ogre from Skinny Puppy in Field of Screams, the sequel, which like that dude is smooth. That dude could get some ladies. But Harper in this, he talked. No, well, that was a little more Hucklebilly than I meant it to be. He kind of talks like this, and he's just not smooth. He comes off as more.
You're sounding like the little boy from the original. Them Yankees didn't give me my candy.
All right, well, he's sort of a grown-up version of that, I guess. I watched the behind the scenes of this, and I couldn't tell if he was acting or being serious or a little bit of both, but
yeah, he was a little weird.
Played Harper, yeah, he just seemed to absolutely hate being involved in it. So maybe a lot of that comes from the fact that he phoned it in. All right, I have the word Hucklebilly in here, and I know that's a character, but I don't remember why, so I'm going to skip it.
Professionalism.
Yeah, I know, right? I touched on this a bit briefly when I was going off on my Eli Roth tangent, but for a movie that came out in 2005, this feels very 90s. There's frosted tips all over the place. Everybody's clothes are ill-fitting and too big. And again, Eli Roth, that dude and his gelled hair is just perpetually in the 90s, unless he's in a Tarantino movie, then he's okay. The effects in this movie were pretty good. They weren't good enough for me to really jump in and find out too much more about them.
I don't feel like it needed a lot of effects, though.
Yeah, I did. I mean, you had the drawn and quartered scene, which was pretty easy. They just needed some severed limbs. I guess the furthest they went was when the milkmaid fed that dude acid, and they did a passable mix of practical effects and CGI. The CGI looked a little bad, but I can forgive that based on budget.
I think that one particular heading looked, like beheading or whatever, looked pretty bad.
Which one?
Well, no, at the end, was it a beheading or was it did it go through their torsos when they were driving out of the town?
Oh yeah, that was it. It went through the quote hero's entire head. It cut it off at the neck, and it went through the heroine's. It sort of cut her off at the jaw.
Yeah, that looked really bad.
Yeah, that. Super great.
They could have taken a page from a Ghost Ship for a better looking kind of effect like that.
Oh man, when I saw Ghost Ship in the theater, the beginning of that was absolutely. I was so excited for what I was getting into.
Yeah, such a good opening.
Oh, that was so great. Once again, this movie sent me on a weird research tangent.
Oh god, the dark side of YouTube again. You can't hold me responsible for that.
This didn't lead me to YouTube. This just led me to something logical. So at one point they're playing horseshoes, which they're throwing sharpened horseshoes at their friend's head, but it's facing the other way so they can't tell. They think they're throwing it at minks. And Harper's character goes off about how horseshoes were invented by trappers as a way to like kill minks in this fashion, which is absolutely not true. This is not how horseshoes were invented. I didn't actually write down how, but it was not. They did not throw spikes at dead minks impaled on stakes.
Harper's lying?
Harper is lying. Therefore, the movie is lying. I love the music. I love the Wandering Minstrels especially, although this is something... I wish that they would have taken the banjo version of the theme song from 2000 Maniacs.
Oh my gosh, so catchy.
Yeah, while keeping the Wandering Minstrels. I think that having those two things at the same time would be cool. And I think they were very underutilized in 2001. The
music in the original was just like, it played throughout, like, and it punched the scenes a little bit heavier during, like, the death sequences. I would have liked to have seen more of that, too.
Yeah, and that's the thing about movies in the 60s and 70s were really good about writing songs based on their movies, and I think that South Will Rise Again song was just so well done. Although, and I'll get to it in a little bit, it was still well utilized in the end of this film, but we'll get there.
Maybe they didn't want to risk you singing along to it, because I gotta admit, it was hard not to sing along.
Yeah, it's really catchy. That's the problem. So yeah, to me, the comedy in this movie is almost always on point. The filmmakers called it Splatstick, and they credit Herschel Gordon Lewis as the first to use murder as a punchline. And I guess, but going back and watching 2000 Maniacs, I don't see a lot of punchlines in that movie's deaths. I see a lot of brutal payoff, but I don't see a lot of comedy.
Yeah, a lot of rough cuts.
But there's a scene in this in 2000 Maniacs where a woman gets a boulder. She's tied, sort of laying on the ground, tied spread eagle on the ground with this giant rock, and they're throwing a baseball at a target. And once the target hits, the rock's going to fall on her. Mm-hmm. And every time they miss, they force her to say the rock hasn't fallen or something like that. And that is just that's not funny to me. That's psychologically torturing a woman who knows she's about to die no matter what she does. Mm-hmm. But I think this movie definitely delivers death as a punchline, especially in the irony of the way they kill some of these people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now I'm on to the death scenes. I did a little bit of comparison between 2000 and 2001. I kind of left Field of Screams out, but I'll mention it occasionally because there were some callbacks to 2000 Maniacs. Most of the characters in this movie are killed in a way that relate to their character's personality or stereotype. Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
You've got the over-sexualized cat drawn and quartered in 2001 Maniacs, which is, considering the way they did it, like having her spread eagle, having her seduced into that position, it makes sense that that's the way she goes. John in 2000 Maniacs gets it the exact same way.
Yeah, they get him super drunk first, so.
Right. They get him super drunk, and then they tie him down with the promise of eventual sex, and then tear him apart. All this while his wife gets her thumb cut off and chopped up with an axe. I didn't really find a way to relate that to
any kind of particular.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the closest.
Well, she's not holding him down close enough with her thumb. You know, he's flirting with other girls.
Yeah, there you go. He's not under her thumb. Actually, that's kind of clever, maybe. The closest I can relate her to is Ricky, the sort of gay character in 2001, but they both die in very different ways. Mm-hmm. So Corey, the one who just wants to drink and hook up, who's having trouble hooking up, ends up getting fed a special drink that is acid. There's no callback to this in the other movies.
No, not at all.
Back to the other movie. The next one though is kind of interesting. Leah, I think she was she Chinese or black and Chinese or Asian? I can't remember her. She wasn't white. She was, I forget what race she was exactly. But in 2001 Maniac, she had a bell dropped on her. This was originally supposed to be the same as 2001 with the rock getting dropped on her that I've already explained. Mm-hmm. But this whole town had all this stuff there already, and I'll explain why in a minute. So they figured, why not use what they have? And that's why that got changed. That's also why Malcolm gets cotton pressed, as opposed to he was originally supposed to be the barrel roll in this one. And Ricky, of course, gets impaled by a spear through the ass that exits through the mouth, which is Lin Shaye's got a great ad-lib scene where she tastes the blood on it. It's brilliant. Yeah, this annoys me a little bit because this blatantly happens because he's gay, and it was a little bit. I'm taking it in fun because the movie's ridiculous.
Too on the nose.
Yeah, it's too on the nose for me. The gay guy doesn't always need to get butt stuff done to him. You know what I mean? We're beyond that now. So Nelson, who spends the entire time trying to bed the two twin girls, well, they're actually cousins, kissing cousins, if you will.
Literal kissing cousins.
Literal kissing cousins. He spends the entire time trying to hook up with them. They're not interested in it at all. They're just interested in him. When Peaches finally shows interest, he's super stoked. He's about to get laid. But little does he know that Peaches has a special kind of mouth insert that turns her upper and lower jaw into this nightmarish metal tooth contraption. And therefore Nelson dies by a metal mouth blowjob, which also does not happen in 2000 Maniacs.
Yeah, I don't think they were ready for that kind of death in the 60s, unless it was like a legitimate like Splatterhouse kind of film.
Yeah, for sure. Did you by chance to notice in the background that there was a sign that said the John Wilkes kissing booth?
No. Oh my God, that is awful.
It was absolutely hilarious. I don't think I wrote it down, but there was one more in Field of Screams that I can't remember. Yeah, and then at the end you have Anderson and Joey, the two that escape and then go back. As they're leaving again, they get double decapitated in a sort of crappy effects scene.
No, I do kind of like the element that he pretended he was from the South.
Yeah, he didn't really pretend, though. He was actually raised in the South and then moved for college.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he was actually from the South. And that's why I think that had he actually done what Buckman wanted him to do, he truly would have been fine because of the whole
because they weren't going out to kill Southerners.
Yeah, exactly. This is a specific... What you learn in the sequel is they need to kill a specific number of Northerners, or at least they think they need to kill a specific number of Northerners to get them...
Released.
To get the list that they want. Yeah, to get released. So to me, the heroes do win at the end of this film. Because they were defeated by invading forces... I'm not saying the invading forces were wrong, but they were definitely wrong in all the rape and murder that they caused.
Yeah.
But yeah, this doesn't happen enough. There aren't too many happy endings in horror these days. It's nice to see the town got to accomplish its goal.
You find that to be a happy ending?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought the original one had a happier ending.
Yeah, but the bad guys actually survive in that. How's that a happy ending?
How are they the bad guys? It was a teacher hitchhiking.
Oh, that's true. I can't lump them in with the douchebag in 2001.
Like,
you're right.
Even like some of the Southern guys were like, "Oh, it's gonna be a shame to kill her. She's such a classy lady."
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we'll see what a classy lady's insides look like, or something to that effect.
Jezebel the Sheep was played herself, and I hope she made it out of this film without any lasting psychological issues because of all. Yeah. The potential terrible things that could have happened to that poor animal.
Well, I'm concerned with how she earned that name.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. Like, I'm concerned that there's like a sheep pimp out there, and this poor thing's just not living her true life. So there are some interesting things I found out about the filming of this, and it makes me understand why they chose to film the sequel differently. And I'll only touch on that after I get through all this stuff. So the town they filmed in actually exists. It's called Westville, Georgia. Although it seems right now they're in the process of moving it to a new location in Columbus, Georgia. These buildings were all originally moved from other places, but they're all from that time period. They're all from the mid to late 19th century. These are all actual, like, they filmed this whole thing in an actual Civil War town.
What a great opportunity for like set pieces, really.
Yeah, seriously. So like the cotton press was, if not an actual original cotton press, it was a remake of a cotton press, and they used this place as a living museum, which is why I assume they found a better place for it when they moved it to Columbus, and that's why it moved. The sequel, Field of Screams, doesn't take place in a town. They decide that they're having trouble luring Northerners, so they move their whole game. They take it on the road, and the entire movie's filmed in kind of like carnival tents. And I assume they did this because they had less of a budget and they couldn't actually get that town again. But it makes up for it in the fact that they have Ogre from Skinny Puppy in it because he could read the phone book, and I would be interested in it. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool. Like, and I wonder if they had to scam their way into this town, or if they were like, "Hey, we're filming this really gory horror film here. Let us spray blood all over your town for a couple of months."
They might have just had a really good location scout.
I mean, they must have, because this place was awesome. I went to the website. This I don't know if I agree with, but this is a piece that I read in the behind the scenes thing. Eli Roth and the director, and you might want to chime in here with some opinion as well. I'm sure you'll have one.
Disclaimer, I don't hate Eli Roth. I just want to make that clear. I don't hate him.
Yeah, I don't hate him either. I think that he invades everything all the time, and I think he's the anti-Scott Valentine, but I'll explain that later. So yeah, Eli Roth and the director Tim Sullivan, they try to make a point about nudity and horror that I'm not sure how I feel about. Let me do that again. Eli Roth and the director Tim Sullivan try to make a point about nudity and horror, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it. They say that the nudity adds to the excitement in the movie, which I agree with, nudity is
if you're
exciting.
if you're a horny guy, it does.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a horny guy, and that's the problem I'm getting to. But they say this excitement makes the scary bits scarier, and it's all about the excitement, and I don't mean to use innuendo here, but the release, the actual, when you actually jump, when you get scared.
So has he just admitted that he's getting off on it?
That's sort of how it felt a little bit.
Wow.
But generally, the sex gets your heart beating just as fast as the horrors you're seeing, which makes the horrors a little more horrible and a little more scary.
Oh my god.
I don't know. What do you think on this? Because I think it's bullshit. Like, if that was the case, there'd be just as much male nudity as there is female, I think.
That is absolute nonsense. First of all, the first 50 years of horror did not require nudity at all, and
Exactly.
it still managed to produce some of the most effective classics of all time.
Yeah.
There's no
And
nudity in any of the Universal monster pictures.
No. And it's not that I mind nudity to a point. Like, I mean, I like seeing ladies naked.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies often look good naked. The reason, like, don't lie about it. The reason you're putting boobs in your movies is to put asses in seats. Just admit it.
There's a sort of a law of theater that applies to film. So, to Eli Roth's point about sex and all that, he's one of those people who falls into that mistaken Hollywood philosophy, which is more apparent now than ever, that spectacle is the most important element of the 6 rules of theater, which it's not. Spectacle
No,
comes
not at
last. First is plot, then character, thought, diction, and even music. Spectacle is very last. Spectacle is what polishes the stone. It's not what creates the story.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Really, that's absolutely, never has a truer statement been spoken.
Yeah, and I think nudity and the whole climax of sex, as he says, that all goes into spectacle. That has nothing to do with plot.
No. And I think it has a place, like, especially in movies like this. And most of the movies I cover, it's all over the place. It's in Die You Zombie Bastards. It's in Night of the Demons. It's in this. Yeah, I think, in fact, it's in pretty much every movie I've covered except for Legend of Hell House. What was the first movie I did? Oh, Cameron's Closet. There's no sex in Cameron's Closet either. All right, so 2. I think in these sort of exploitation, ridiculous comedy horror films, there's a place for it. I normally look at it as more of an ironic thing, like, oh, boobs and horror, yeah, that's going to happen again, but I think trying to justify it with this bullshit artistic vision is just cheapening your product.
That's ridiculous. Unless it's like let's say a French horror film, which usually, frankly, does have heavy elements of sex. Unless the terror of the film is about being sexually terrorized, it has no place.
Yeah, I will definitely give you that. And it's nice to know that Aristotle has our back. Thanks, bro. My favorite part of this movie has got to be the final scene. I think that they took the movie, and in fact, if anything, I think they should have taken this a little bit further. Mm-hmm. And I may be overthinking it, as I often do, but they sort of take the comedy and all these jokes these characters are making, and they turn them on their head, and they almost turn it into, like, these people have suffered this terrible tragedy, and these jokes are kind of their way of dealing with this tragedy until they can rest. And in the end of the film, the way they twisted this is so perfect. In the final scene, you've got Anderson and Joey dodging through this gauntlet of murderous townfolk. The ghosts finally let go of their jovial ways, and some of them tell us what happened to them during the raid. Rufus, one of the brothers, says, "You'll never kill me again," and Granny Boone says, "Bring back my baby." Mm-hmm. And these 2 things are so important because this tells you what happened to these people. Like, Granny Boone probably watched her baby murdered right in front of her before she was killed herself.
Yeah.
Rufus, based on the way Rufus's character acts, I wouldn't be surprised if some terrible shit happened to him before he was actually killed. And if they would have given me a little bit more of the townsfolk perspective on that, I think it would have affected me more than it did. But it did affect me a lot. Yeah, more impact.
Yeah.
It was cool to go through this I mean, it's a comedy. It's definitely a comedy, but it was really neat to go through this comedy and then all of a sudden have that turned on you and be like, oh yeah, these people have suffered horribly and all they want is to rest, and this
seeing
is the only
them drop
way
the
they can
masks
think to do it. Yeah, thought that was fantastic.
To that point, I really agree, but I also think as a writer, it would be a challenge to reveal those elements without going so far as to reveal the twist ending.
I don't know. I think they could have done it because, especially on a first Well, of course, the first watch. No, I think they could have done it because...
I think it should have been something that was hinted at throughout the film in, like, maybe darker conversations between townspeople, and that could have been...
No, yeah,
done.
You're right. They could have done it, and again, we're rewriting the movie here, but that's okay. They could have, even if that could be another good thing for the Wandering Minstrels to...
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, to have some
to
kind
be
of...
a part of.
Yeah.
They could have these songs. They could have these more dirges about what happened to these people, but not like little dirge sections in their funny songs or something like
That's
that.
okay. We can
really
fix
cool.
all of the problems in the fan fiction.
Yeah, you're right. We can, and we will do that. So I would like to touch briefly on 2001 Field of Screams, because I think that they did a lot wrong with what this movie did right. Field of Screams is about this same group of people that decide they can't get enough Northerners, so they take it on the road. And as they find a place, they set up their tents, and they're there. And this production company who's filming a reality show, it's supposed to be Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie's The Simple Life. Do you remember that show existing?
Of course I remember that show existing.
Okay. So
that was what put them on the map for 5 minutes.
Yeah, good point. But it's supposed to be that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they stumble upon the Maniacs, and then they get killed in various ways, blah, blah, blah. And I think the casting in some ways improved. Lin Shaye was still there, and like I keep saying, Ogre from Skinny Puppy's in there. Johnny Mosley, as opposed to Robert Englund, was sort of a lateral move. It wasn't really bad, but it wasn't really good either.
Wait. I thought it was Bill Moseley.
Oh, Bill Moseley. I'm sorry. Yeah. And this movie kicks back into some of the deaths in 2000 Maniacs. Like they do the barrel roll in this one. And as you learned in our quiz, they do it with a target.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. They definitely took the deaths more over top than the original did, which is amazing because the original, when I say original, I mean 2001 Maniacs.
Well, that's the exponential law of horror sequels.
Yeah. And they definitely did this in this. Mm-hmm. But I think the plot was a little lamer. The characters were even less likable. And there was this weird subplot about Granny Boone's character wanting to get pregnant.
That's unnecessary.
It just leaned too much into the ridiculousness and didn't really have the tortured maniacs who were dealing it through humor and murder this time around.
Well, what worked for 2000 and 2001 Maniacs, I think, is that it was the anti-Brigadoon. That loses that effect when they're allowed to leave the town.
Yeah, and that definitely messed up part of the mythos, too. That and maybe not. I don't think they ever said it, but it's assumed that they can't leave the town. And like I said, I think they had to leave the town because of budget restraints. I think they couldn't afford a town again, so they had to do the sort of like tents in the middle of nowhere thing.
Yeah, but if they had been able to leave the town in the first place, they wouldn't have had to hit a certain number. They could have just left and gone on a ghostly massacre when the whole thing started.
True. An interesting thing that I'm not sure why I was really obsessed with 2001 Maniacs back before its release, and I was following the production of 2001 Maniacs Field of Screams for a while. The original draft of the script, if I remember correctly, was supposed to be sort of the Maniacs meet a group like the Devil's Rejects. Mm-hmm. So it was supposed to be these two different, and maybe they were ghost versions of the Devil's Rejects. I don't know. Let me clarify. I don't actually mean Captain Spaulding as his crew. I mean someone like that. So it would have been more a battle between these two different ghost entity towns.
Crazy versus crazy.
Right, with some innocent bystanders in the middle. And I think had they done that, it would have been a much more interesting movie, possibly even surpassing the original 2001 Maniacs. But they didn't do that, whether it was the director's choice or the writer's choice or the producer's choice or the budget's choice. It didn't quite get there. And as I really loved Field of Screams, I think it could have been better had the plot that I had originally read about came to fruition, I guess.
You know, that's funny because it reminds me of the concept script for Freddy vs. Jason. One of the original ideas was that it was supposed to end with them falling down into hell and then meeting Pinhead, who says basically something along the lines of, "Oh, what fun we're going to have," which would have been a way better ending.
Oh, no doubt. They were also supposed to do a Pinhead versus Michael Myers. They were going to call it Halloween. That would have been badass. The plot was supposed to be Michael Myers was actually an escaped Cenobite.
Nice. Oh, man,
and
I love that.
they were going to bring him back into the fold. Yeah, it would have been pretty dope.
I think that would be too much retconning, though. I think maybe a lot of people might not have liked that.
Yeah, you're probably right, but I would have loved it. That would have been a movie just made for the fans, and if they could have pulled it off, that could have been so epic. But yeah, so that's 2001 Maniacs. I hope you guys enjoyed my disjointed rantings. I tried to keep it together as much as possible, but it has been over a week since I've seen the films and my memory sucks, so I apologize if things got confusing.
If you want to find our blog, you can find us at Hallow-Holic.blogspot.com or the mirror site, Hallow-Holic.wordpress.com.
And you can find us on Twitter, Hallow-Holics Anonymous, or at Nowhere23. If you search for either of those, it'll get you to the Twitter. Please leave comments. Let me know what you want to hear. I will respond back, and keep an eye on it for updates, movie trailers, hints at what we're doing next, that kind of thing.
And also, one new thing, we have an email you can contact us at now. It's Hallow-Holics@outlook.com. So if you have something a little bit longer than a tweet, a request, something to say to us, even just give us a little audio shout out, whatever. We're happy to read or listen.
Also, please, if you're listening through iTunes, remember to rate us. It helps us out a lot.
Now that all that's done, I think I'm going to get some corn on a stick. You're cool just chilling out with this friendly group of toothless banjo players, right, Corey?
Wouldn't be the first time, and it definitely will not be the last time, Maddie. Wish me the best. I'm going in.
And they'll listen to this song, and they'll wake in fear to hear this rebel yell. And they'll wake in fear to hear this rebel yell. Yeah! Oh, the South's gonna rise again.